Yeah, Ice-T sure went for some hardcore stuff when trying to introduce soccer moms to anime. Ah, the early 2000s on VH1. That sure was a time. Just like MTV, VH1 started out as a music network, but at some point decided to follow the same route as MTV and change things up a bit. The two networks always seemed to follow a similar route, even if they were targeting a different audience, so it shouldn't be surprising that as soon as reality TV shows started to hit big on MTV, VH1 would soon follow. So when the Osbournes broke big time on MTV in 2002, VH1 decided it was time to make all kinds of shows like The Surreal Life and Strange Love that featured celebrities in odd situations. They never had anyone involved in these shows that was quite as famous as the Prince of Darkness himself, but boy did they try. However, through all of that, a few truly bizarre shows came into the mix. They even gave the original OG himself, Ice-T, a TV show. But wait, you don't know who Ice-T is? What's wrong with you? I thought all otaku were huge gangster rap fans. Well, for those unaware, Ice-T is a legendary rapper who released his first full-length record, Rhyme Pays, in 1987. However, Ice-T wasn't just content with one genre of music and released his first metal and crossover thrash album in 1992 with his band Body Count. While Ice-T was already a very successful rapper on his own, this band quickly threw him into mainstream America thanks to the huge amount of controversy created with soccer moms, well, all over America based on the now classic song Cop Killer, resulting in their debut album getting banned all over the place. This song had a deeper message than most of Middle America could even try to understand, but it really helped cement Ice-T's status as the guy that parents were concerned about and loved to hate. Ironically, years later, of course, he would go on to play a cop in Law and Order on TV, and many of those same offended parents would magically love him all of a sudden. Crazy how time heals all wounds, isn't it? But here on Kimchi no Video, we look at anime, manga, and the related parts of Japanese culture, be it the music or even toku related to those things. So why are we discussing VH1 and Ice-T? Well, we're getting to that, trust me. But first, remember how I said Ice-T released his first album in 1987? Well, guess what else came out in 1987? The same year that the OG of all OGs released his first full-length album was the exact same year that Yuritsuka Doji, Legend of the Overfiend, was released on the world. And just like Ice-T, this OVA series, later turned into a movie, would go on to be quite controversial. That's right, this anime is one of those animes of the adult variety, if you know what I mean.
Hentai.
But it's different than many other ones in that genre because a lot of people that aren't really into that stuff seem to be into this, or at least they've seen it. At its core, they could have reworked this thing and just had it been one of those hyper-violent OVAs from the 80s that everyone seems to love to this day. Now, that's not to say that this thing isn't loved to this day, because it certainly is, but this little OVA cultivated a much larger audience than your average piece of adult animation produced in Japan in the 1980s would have, especially at that time. A lot of people love this thing, or at least tolerate it. I mean, they're aware of it at the very, very least. I mean, it's crazy that this even made it to American theaters at one point, believe it or not. But if you've never been privileged enough yourself to experience the Overfiend, you're probably wondering what this Disney quality work is all about, right? Well, the story is very simple. There's a bit of a plot about a demon wanting to bring peace to the world or something, but in the process he destroys everyone. There's a lot of action, the main protagonist has a glowing crotch at one point, and there's even a weird little kawaii sidekick, believe it or not. But listen, you don't really go into this thing for the plot. You go into it for the over-the-top insanity, and trust me, it is quite the experience if you have the stomach for it. It is pure insanity, and people ate it up. Plus, the animation is pretty great quality-wise with some pretty big names behind the scenes, so that certainly played into the success of the Overfiend. So, where are we really going with all of this? What is Ice-T's connection to this testosterone-filled classic of epic tentacle proportions, and how does VH1 factor into all of this? Well, in that early 2000s boom of reality TV shows and celebrity-branded garbage we spoke about earlier, VH1 gave Ice-T his own TV show. It didn't seem to last very long. As a matter of fact, it seemed to last one episode. But what an episode that was. The show was called Ice-TV, The Cult, and it was basically 22 minutes of Ice-T yelling about the media he enjoyed. He yelled about Guar, he yelled about Shaft, he yelled about Debbie Does Dallas. And then it happened.
All right, here we go. Yeah, I like anime. You got a problem with that? This is my show, Ice TV. This is not I'm stupid holding the lights show. This flick is called Legend of the Overfiend. It's one of my favorites. It's got sexy cheerleaders, up monsters bent on world domination, kind of like myself, and some snarf-looking.
Yes, that's right. Ice-T yelled about the Legend of Overfiend on American TV. That's right. VH1 showed this adult anime classic to the most middle America of middle American soccer moms possible. Sure, VH1 was certainly trying to rebrand themselves as a edgier version of their former selves with shows like this and The Rock Show, but when you really think about it, this is insane. And sure, it's not like they showed the whole thing or anything like that. They didn't even show any of the super tasty bits, if you know what I mean, but how many anime series of this variety have ever been shown on American TV in any way, shape, or form? I'm sure it's not many. This is not only one of the most hilarious moments of anime on TV in American history, but I weirdly think it's also one of the most important ones because it really showed both the unawareness of the general American audience to the anime scene, but it also showed how weirdly open VH1 was to showing anything that was animated under the idea that it was simply a cartoon. Despite the fact that Ice-T describes the OVA or maybe the movie version that he saw in great detail, yeah, it's pretty insane and hilarious when you really think about it there for a second. And as I just said, VH1 was certainly trying to be more hardcore with this Ice-T show, but did they really realize just how hardcore they were being with this clip in particular? Sure, Debbie Does Dallas was also mentioned in this show, and that was definitely more well known at the time for what it was in America. But can you imagine those VH1 editors combing through the Overfiend trying to find some clips that were suitable for TV? They had no idea what they were thrown into, and I love that idea. In the early 2000s, anime wasn't what it is today in America, and it was still considered pretty nerdy most of the time. I mean, just look at how Ice-T is very defensive with his claims to be an anime fan. Of course, Ice-T was still pretty controversial himself at this point, so it makes sense that he picked an anime that was also quite controversial. But, did he have to go this far? The answer is yes. Ice-T wanted to show the world a side of himself that we had no idea was even a thing. Ice-T wanted to prove that he was more otaku than 99% of the anime fans out there. You think you're special because you built a Gundam model? Ice-T got the Overfiend on TV. Step up to his level. And even though the Overfiend is a popular franchise to this day, how many people would actually present this as the first anime they love to the world without warning? Not many. Most people wouldn't have the guts to do it. But for Ice-T, he had already taken on the entire US government, so this dirty little anime was nothing for him. He was ready to be that guy to introduce this anime to as many people as possible. Another thing I find so interesting about Ice-T being a fan of this one in particular is the sheer serendipity of the Overfiend and the OG himself. Both started in 1987, both were very controversial in their time, and both were embraced by audiences they never even tried to appeal to. Everything Ice-T did in those days musically had some true meaning under all the shock, and while I'm not sure the Overfiend had much meaning under all of its shock, it is a true work of art that defies logic and good taste. With that said, I am quite sure Ice-T saw the underlying meaning of getting this trashy otaku filth on TV. He knew it was ridiculous. And once again, he was playing people for everything they were worth. Because if Ice-T loved this one, I'm sure he saw other anime. But just like his music, he wanted to shock the people. Throughout this entire episode of Ice-TV, he comes off as a psychopath that's just into the worst things possible that are also very cool. But anyone that has followed him throughout the years knows that he's a very well-spoken, intelligent individual. This TV episode was his vehicle to expose Middle America to the most extreme media that he was a fan of. And it worked. Kind of. I mean, he presented everything that he wanted to present in this first episode. It's just a shame that we didn't get more out of this potential series. From what very small amount of information I could find online, it seems like this show only aired on TV once, maybe twice, and somehow I was lucky enough to see it. And until finding this rough quality upload online, I questioned if I was even remembering things right, but I knew I had to be. This little show is how I discovered the wonder that is the mighty Overfiend. So at bare minimum, Ice-T touched one soul in a very deep, heartfelt, and meaningful way that day. Also, my friend watched this with me, so I guess he touched both of us in that deep, meaningful, heartfelt way, but all I'm really trying to say here is that without Ice-T, it might have taken us years to discover this thing in a dark corner of an anime con somewhere, so thanks to Ice-T for putting us through that. Ah, the memories. On the other hand, it's not that surprising that this thing didn't turn into a full-on show because it was just too much for VH1. But could you imagine, had this thing turned into a normal series? What over-the-top anime would Ice-T have featured next? Maybe Ice-T could have become the tastemaker for this particular type of anime smut. Ice-T could have even started his own licensing company specializing in this stuff. He could have been a guest at anime cons across the country. He could have started his own anime con because he was making so much money from this stuff he was releasing with the VH1 tie-in. He could have created his own Ice-T and Overfiend crossover anime extravaganza special. All I'm saying is that the world could have been a better place had VH1 just let this show continue on TV. But they had to ruin the party for everyone with just one episode. Why, VH1? Why? Honestly, I'm sure that VH1 feared what would come next after the Overfiend. They knew that the future looked intense, and they wanted to jump out of the fire before it consumed the entire network, turning them into a 24-hour haven for this type of cultured anime. They knew it would happen. They knew the power of the Overfiend. They knew the power of Ice-T. They feared that power of the Overfiend. They feared that power of Ice-T. And they knew they had to put a stop to this before that power took them over. So yeah, VH1 destroyed this show before it even had a chance to become the cultural phenomenon that it was surely destined to be. But regardless of if they realize it or not, VH1 is a very important part of anime smut history. Because they were the network that showed the Overfiend on American network TV.